think that giving away money is quite difficult, actually. First of all, the needs out there are enormous, and so there are no dearth of good ideas. The trick is to be clear about what you are trying to accomplish and then working in partnership with your nonprofit grantees. And partnership is not an easy concept in philanthropy because there are a lot of foundations that are happy to tell you what to do, and there are plenty of foundations that are willing to give you a grant and not really spend too much time with you. But finding that middle place where you are both partnering and coaching and helping think through problems, it's a very important line to walk, and I have to say I think the Murdock Charitable Trust does that as well as it can be done, and that was always quite impressive to me.
Great credit to the Trust. They have always understood and properly contextualized the world for not just where it is, but where it needs to be and how we drive that change.
I think the things that matter most to us are the support for our science program. Murdock is very respected for the deep support it gives for science here at Reed, science education and science research. One of the things I love about Reed is our strength in the sciences. We've long been a leader in that area, and we're a leader in part because of the very generous support from the Murdock Trust.
So if we can be at the forefront with all of our colleagues at other institutions, it just makes our research fit into the bigger research picture. And I think that's what the Murdock Trust has done for me, has really just allowed me to hit the ground running and kind of keep the momentum that I had coming.
When I look around at almost any building at Seattle University, the Murdock Charitable Trust has helped us in that building in one way or another to realize it. So it really fosters the undergraduate research, particularly of our students in science and engineering, and that makes all the difference now, because if they're going to go on in a career with graduate studies in science and engineering, it's important that they have undergraduate research. So the Murdock Trust makes sort of a depth of education possible for those students, particularly in the areas of science and engineering.
So much of our programming is centered around youth and education services. And what we've been able to do through the generosity of the Murdock Trust is to create classrooms where every student has access to a computer and has access to the internet, so they can get cutting-edge information for the work that they do. It's something that you don't often even see in the public school system, but we have it here, and we have it because of the Murdock Trust.
70% of people who are blind and visually impaired are unemployed out of over 1 million people nationwide, and 70% of children who are blind have never experienced any type of sports or physical activity before. Thanks to the support from the Trust, our programs, when we first started, they were primarily in the Clark County, Portland area, and we're now providing programming across Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana to ensure that by year 2017, every single individual who is blind or visually impaired have been able to experience sports and physical activity on a more ongoing basis.
Every single percentage point that we reduce the divorce rate positively impacts the lives of more than 1 million children. Think about that. That's for one single percentage point. And that was the catalyst for launching our Foundation for Healthy Relationships, a nonprofit that is dedicated to helping turn around the divorce rate, educate young people as they start lifelong love, and train up an army of marriage mentor couples. We want to see 1 million marriage mentors that can undergird this next generation of couples. And well, once again, Murdock stepped in. They caught the vision immediately and helped us as we launched this effort, and have supported us ever since now with 2 rounds of funding, and we couldn't be more grateful.
Eagle Mount has so many stories to share. I mean, think about it. It's the story of a kid that nobody thought could ever ski independently, who finds the courage to try and finds that he can do it. It's the story of a child with autism who nobody thought could speak, who gets on a horse and suddenly talks in paragraphs. It's a story at the same time of 2,000 able-bodied volunteers who step up every year to help out. Those are incredible stories.
We met a child in India, in Pune, this past year who was living in an orphanage. His name is Ayush. He's 4 years old. Like many kids who we've met around the world, Ayush was being fed laying flat on his back. And he couldn't keep up and he would oftentimes choke and aspirate, which for him led to frequent pneumonia. And he also was not gaining weight and was dangerously underweight. Using an old high chair, we were able to get him to sit upright. And this was the first time in his 4-year-old life he had sat up. And it was the first time he ate an entire meal. He didn't choke, he didn't fall asleep. And more than that, for the first time, these caregivers who had known him for many years saw him for the first time smile.
There are several residents in our projects that make perhaps some of the most delicious tamales you have ever tasted. So we took these ladies and took them through a training course, a Business 101, with support from Murdock on how to become business entrepreneurs, accounting, how to buy your ingredients, how to present them. And we paid for them to sell their tamales at Portland farmers markets and other markets in the Tri-City area. And within 1 year, these 10 tamale ladies, with support from Murdock, made $300,000. They grossed $300,000 selling tamales. I never thought or envisioned that the appetite for tamales would be so great in the city of Portland.
You know, I think a lot of donors, focus on understanding the impact and scaling up a project and want to feel directly connected with that. But Murdock is such a special partner because they're actually doing things that are a little bit behind the scenes that are really about building the capacity for impact. And I think a good example of that would be a river blindness diagnostic that we have rolled out in Africa. And river blindness is not well known, but it's the leading cause of blindness in Africa, and it's a terrible disease. And in order to do the work on that, we needed a special piece of equipment. And as we got it near demonstration quality, we were able to go to donors like USAID and the Gates Foundation, and they were very excited to fund the scale up of that and its rollout into Africa. And through the real foresight of Jack and the foundation, making an investment that was perhaps not glamorous but foundational to our capacity and our ability to do this work is what unlocked that impact that we're so proud of.
Thanks, Jack, for helping us prepare the leaders of the future to make our communities thrive.
Thanks, Jack, for thinking about families, rural and tribal families, and all that they make possible. Thanks for investing in them.
Thanks, Jack, for supporting the African American Health Coalition and making a difference to improve the health status of Blacks in Oregon.
Thanks, Jack, for investing in marriages and families long after you were here.
Thank you, Jack, for thinking ahead and planning for the next generation and investing your resources to make things happen that you would be so proud of.
Thanks, Jack, for funding cancer research that you could not have even imagined.
Thank you, Jack, for thinking regionally, for understanding that the Northwest is a region that's knit together by history and tradition and geography, and thank you for helping build that community across state lines.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
Jack, thank you for thinking ahead.
For thinking ahead.
Thanks for thinking ahead.
Jack, muchísimas gracias por pensando adelante.
Thanks for thinking ahead, Jack.